It's Saturday, baby.
We are Saturday Night Sell Swords, group of friends, play D&D and all that fun stuff. We've done this panel a couple of years where we bring our brightest minds of dungeon masters or game masters to...
And me.
And him, yeah. To answer any questions you may have in regards to tabletop as a player, as a DM, finding groups, stealing groups, whatever. In which case, if you have a question, ask one of us. Or, we have, of course, we can always pull from a pool of questions.
We'll also be providing some type of outside of this room contact in case they have any follow-up questions.
Naturally.
Okay, good.
So,
Throw one at you.
Oh, you got a question?
Yeah.
All right, you go ahead and shoot.
So at the game store that we play D&D at, where I'm DMing, we've got a number of young players who are starting to come in, talking like 11, 12, early teens, which is phenomenally great, and I do wish to encourage that, but they are a little immature. Have you guys had any experience with that? Any tips you could share?
Well, speaking as the immature one, I'm going to throw this question over to Blake.
thanks, buddy. Actually, yes. I have played a few times with younger beginners, and one thing I've learned as a DM is that while there are times you may want to play a certain tone or style of gameplay, it's usually best to lean into what your group does. So in the case of preteens or young children, sculpt the adventure more suited for how they're going to play. And then you kind of nudge them in the direction as they play more, get more experience, a little more maturity, and then you can have that more, maybe like your Curse of Strahd done proper as opposed to Curse of Strahd Jr., the trickster.
Yeah, don't start with Curse of Strahd straight. Waterdeep is a nice place to start.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I would definitely make it more sculpted around the immature sense of humor myself, because I find that will engage them better. It's like, well, why would I attack this creature? It's like, well, because you called him on that. Like, apt. But sometimes that's all it takes to get a kid engaged, is saying that, it's like, hey, this is my type of humor right there.
Yep.
Yeah, steer into the curve.
But yeah, excellent question.
Okay, that's all the questions. Cool. Have a good day, everybody.
Actually, I think going off of that, Tom, how would you deal with a shy player that's new to D&D and get them to open up and engage more with the RP and being a part of it?
How do I engage the shy player? Well, first thing, a one-on-one conversation with the player, find out what they're into, what they're interested in, help them craft their character to work with how they want to play it and how they are as well. I mean, it is very hard to be the charismatic rogue when you're a bit shy, so it's best to talk with them, work on it, and generally try to make them as comfortable as possible. Because shyness is often not really something that sticks around for too long once you get to know a group of people. How would you handle a shy player?
I mean, aside from what you just said, I would definitely be very encouraging. Give them a few options, like, hey, here's some things you can do, and try to push that bit of creativity that comes out and just give them that nudge. Because I've seen completely new players come up with something that surprises the DM. There's an example I read way back where DM had sort of a crazy prospector creative dynamite, throwing it at players on a mountainous trail, and the new player was playing a cleric, and she was like, oh, can I? Like, no, never mind. It's like, no, what do you want to do? And they're like, can I use create water on the crate and douse all the dynamite? And everyone was floored, like, yeah, that one-shots the encounter. And then from there, the player found their footing and became more engaged and was, well, no longer a shy player.
Good question.
The first time when you DM'd, how do you know when you were like ready to do it? And to present the game, like
I'm
preparation
still
versus
not
just
sure.
winging it?
Like, I'm still not sure I'm the guy to be DMing. Like, I will start leading a group. Look, my favorite campaign that I ever ran was the silliest campaign idea in the history of the world. I ran a perfectly straight very dark Curse of Strahd campaign. But at the very end, when they finally revealed Strahd, he's talked like Cornholio from Beavis and Butthead. Hey, all that set up for one silly joke.
Yeah.
So yeah,
When I wanted the DM, basically do think the first step would be, I like world building. I remember when our main DM before, we'd run campaign, one shots, we played different editions, and I became more of a, I could have done that. I could have done it better. And if I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give it a try. Turned out okay. Not the best. I overloaded a lot of Easter eggs and references into there that kind of bloated the world a bit in the wrong way, but wanting to do it and just taking that step was really, I knew I was ready to do it. Now for some people, it's like, yeah, a joke, one thing, or we have our one friend, he wanted to run, and I said, yeah, what do you want to do? And he told me, and I was like, I gave him a few tips from painful lessons I learned, and just sort of help him build the basics, so that way I didn't know too much about the adventure. And it didn't go as well, but that's part of the process of learning.
I believe he's speaking about a one-shot that started out as Jurassic Park and ended as Predator. And I am not, these aren't euphemisms or symbolism or anything. Literally, you're in a park full of creatures.
You forgot the
And you're-
Pokemon part of that too.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, Jurassic Park is just Pokemon.
Yeah, he wanted to run a Pokemon, but some of the players did not want to do a Pokemon thing. But he loved predators, so it turned into from Jurassic Park on this private island into he's going to give you these special magical spheres that will capture the escaped monsters on the island, and then that's when the predators struck because they were hunting all the creatures. And it turned out okay. There was some stumbling there on his part, but it was still a memorable one-shot. And honestly, whether it's a silly adventure, a serious adventure, as long as you're having fun on some level, that's all that matters.
Yeah, like one thing I would like to throw out, anybody who is first time DMing, one of the tricks I like to use is I like to use sounds, music, noise, to set the tone for the background. And it's something I've started to implement only because I have a friend of ours in the group, his name's Josho, I think he's gonna be on one of our panels tomorrow. And he loves to play Call of Cthulhu, like really dark, creepy stuff. But it was so hard for me to get in the right mindset because we'd be playing and it'd be like, and you see an unnamed horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's just a smiley, Wisconsin, happy guy, and just like, yep, and you're being eviscerated by the jumping jack of New Jersey or something along those lines. So yeah, setting the tone as a DM can be quite difficult, just a heads up.
Yeah. But he has gotten a lot better with matching the tone. And doing pretty well.
Oh,
I'm enjoying two of his games actually right now. One I'm helping some new players in, and another one just for fun in Pathfinder, trying out some combinations of classes that I wanted to in the prior campaign, but couldn't been able to do. Any questions you come across on the interwebs that stood out to you?
Yeah, how to change a tire on a Toyota Tacoma, but I don't feel that's relevant here. Let's see. Well, first, does anybody else have any questions? Look, Indiana Jones.
How do you get certain players to be more engaged? So I have a table of 6. 5 of them are fantastic. They're super involved. The last one's really there for his fiance, and it's really hard to get him pulled into anything. Like, he misses rounds in combat because he's playing on his phone. Like, he's just not paying attention to anything. And if I kick him out, then she leaves, and she's great. So
Yeah. My first method for that would be to build an arc completely around his character, to try to excite him to want to play that character. So, like, what kind of class is he playing?
Ranger.
A ranger.
Yeah.
So I would do something that I would probably have an arc that relies heavily on his particular skills and class features. And if he gave you any idea of the backstory, obviously lean into that. If he were like, well, I'll just play a ranger and that's it, then make something that would be interesting and see if that brings him more into it and more wanting to be there, not just for her, but to be there and actually want to play.
one of the tips that I found out works out really well, which surprised me, is set up a camera. Tell them you're recording it, so you're going to put it up on your channel online. I guarantee you that phone gets put away because nobody wants to watch a guy do this for an hour and a half. Why the movie Buried with Ryan Reynolds was complete crap. It's an entire movie of him. Just like, yeah. But no, I would say also a stern conversation can take you pretty far. Just go, hey man, look, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're playing. I would really like you to be more engaged because your character is kind of important to the overall story I've crafted. And sometimes that's all you really need to do.
Thank you.
Question? Okay. Yep,
Do you
David.
have like favorite online resources for like world building or like shop stocking?
I like fantasy novels. I like to kind of build my world in my head and add things I see in popular culture. And, but I mean, there's a lot of great resources online. What are some ones you use?
Specifically for the shopkeeping and inventory, if you're playing 5th edition, the 5e Wikidot pretty much has everything on it. And I've used that to filter through like items, magical, non-magical, and the better align what's appropriate or maybe a little extras. I also enjoy, this is not online, but the DMG has some of the random tables. Finding online tables that have been updated, include all the source books or of whatever system you're playing or edition. That way you can have your sort of standard approach, but then like a little like, well, I did just get this one thing, hold on, and then insert item that you just rolled up to add in. Oh yeah, this one guy dropped off and bought it cheap, and now they have the Berserker Edge or something. World building. I've been looking into some of the map systems. I've been wanting to do some Ark and Forge stuff, but that's require a little build for later. But yeah, I mean, like with him, I like to look at media that I enjoyed growing up and taking inspiration from those things that would, like the movie Annihilation. I really liked that one. I thought that would be a great Cthulhu inspired, but maybe more in the modern world type of one-shot or even adventure. So the whole thing where in the movie there's like DNA gets sort of mixed around and merged, and it created sort of this monstrous element, but they still retain their human forms. So that's one thing I've used as well. And like with the JPP one-shot, my buddy used Jurassic Park, Pokemon, and Predators. Sometimes a little silly, other times you can just change the name and you have an excellent adventure just from your favorite movie or book.
Thanks.
No problem, good question.
So just wondering a little bit where we're at now. A little bit of background, started off with White Box, where we made stuff up as we went along. And I've seen it all evolve down to 5e, where there's so much content that if somebody says they know everything to play D&D, I know they're lying.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
They're certainly not telling you the truth. And so where I skew, especially for younger players, and I wonder where we're at now, because I've been in and out for quite a while now, as to skewing to make the game playable, as opposed to the 37 source books that we have, plus various and sundry, add-ins and other partners that have contributed in. I see that as a big hurdle to initiate, even with like Fendelver and this new Sword Coast thing that they have. Easy to jump into, but still, a little light. But for new players, where's our latitude now? Where are we at? Where's the community at with just being able to play the game as we will?
Well, I mean, generally when I get up, a lot of new players, which I've had to deal with like 20-year-olds who have never played D&D before, a large group of them. I tend to be forgiving. I like to enact what they call the rule of cool, which is if it sounds good and it's close enough to the rules, I'm gonna let it happen. But also I like to make sure that they're aware of Rule 0 in every DMG since 2nd edition. DM makes the rules. How about you?
When it comes to new players, I like to because like you pointed out, there's been so many splat books, official books, third-party publishers, homebrew, that it can get to just a lot. I tend to strip it down to just the basic options with a little extra, and then sort of start sprinkling stuff in as we go. But I'd like to also utilize the prior editions, the strengths and weaknesses that came from before that may not have been brought over, like 4th edition. People love, hate it. I started on 4th edition.
I love 4th edition
And
myself.
there are so many mechanical things you can use in 4th edition, especially for 5e, which is kind of it's basically 4th edition, but stripped down. But there's so many things that you can take from that as you want and as you need to get more of that original creativity from the earlier stuff, and still have the mechanical backing you need to kind of best implement it fairly. But once again, without throwing too much in where it's like, okay, you gotta learn this turn, that turn, this, and so on. Does that kind of help with the question, or? Because in a very, very open way you worded it, so.
I think that I had a young player who was super excited to come in and had made up a thief, trickster, Aarakocra.
Okay.
That, isn't
Flying
even a
Dandy.
basic source. And everybody else, this was a bunch of, by the way, this is interesting. I had 8 tween middle school girls that had all, 2 of which were my granddaughters, and brought their friends in.
That's awesome.
But you see, that's a little more advanced for people that have never used that, especially flying characters as
Yeah.
a flying character as a
Yes.
base character. Flying characters are, hey, we've had gargoyles since for.
Well, yeah, but then, I've learned that a lot of D&D, it's in the name, dungeons.
Yeah.
You're in a closed space that your flight doesn't mean too much. You get your open battles where it can help out, but
Well, I mean, I definitely find, especially with something like that, the best thing you do is to set a ground rule to help keep them where it's at. It's like, when I say roll initiative, your speed turns to 40. That's it. So you've got freedom of movement during exploratory and or just regular gameplay, but the second I say roll initiative, you need to limit it to this much space so that way the flying doesn't become broken.
yeah.
That definitely helps them understand, okay, so that's the sandbox in which I'm working in.
Yeah, as our group's primary power gamer, not by design, but I just tend to look at all the options and pick certain things, and it happens.
It's
That's
a
why
nice
usually
way of saying
I
cheater.
like playing support classes for this reason. But in that kind of case, I would definitely, if I was DMing something like that, and let's say everyone else has more basic options, try to encourage that player to use their at-will flight to better support their other players. So like if it's like, hey, I'm gonna pick you up and fly over here and give you position, and then it becomes like a resource that everyone kind of can enjoy to an extent, assuming that the encounter in the area, works for it. But good question.
Hey Blake,
Yeah.
what is the best and worst advice you've ever gotten asked as a DM? Like, I want a DM, and then somebody gives you advice. What is the best and the worst?
The best.
And the worst.
The best advice I was given is that it's not you versus the players. It's a collaborative storytelling adventure. If they're not having fun, you're not having fun. And if they're all having fun, but you're still not having fun, then there's something wrong there too. It goes both ways. The worst, that's gonna take a little bit of thinking. Why don't you go ahead and do your best while I get a
Okay.
on that.
The best advice I've ever heard from anybody when it comes to DMing a Dungeons and Dragons game is pretend that was the plan the whole time. You would be surprised how many times it's like, I'm sure some of you have heard the story of the gazebo, where somebody's playing a game of D&D and they say the word gazebo. They didn't know the other guy didn't know what a gazebo was, and he thought it was some type of monster. So he talks to it, and then he ends up attacking it. And then, sure enough, the DM, instead of going, no, you nincompoop, this is a structure, They just roll up stats for the gazebo. And then the other one it makes me think of is, it's like the warehouse. It's like, is that a house that attacked people? It is now. Yeah.
Actually, worst advice just
The
popped in
worst
my head.
advice you ever got, let's hear it.
Never tell your players no.
Never
You-
tell your players no is bad
You
advice.
never give them everything. Don't be afraid to say no, because sometimes you control where they're at, their power levels, and the consistency of your world. Some of our prior campaigns, or even long-lasting mini campaigns, fell apart because of, well, some people were just doing that. They were like, oh yeah, you can have that. Oh, you can do that. And then the world building falls apart, the power balance is way out of skew, and then no one's having fun, because otherwise they're curb stopping everything, or now your monsters are curb stopping. But yeah, I have actually heard someone say, no, just give them what they want before, and it's like, no. Don't be afraid to use the word, no, you can't have that. No, you can't do that. Be like, you can try, but no. What about you on worst advice?
The worst advice I have ever heard when it came to DMing any game is do not change the rules. That has got to be the dumbest one, because some of the rules make no sense at all. Like, I believe in Pathfinder and a number of other editions, any diagonal movement, every odd movement counts as 2 extra spaces. So you go 5, and then you go 15, and then you go 20, and then you go 30. I don't like that. I don't implement that rule anymore. But there was a time where it's like, well, that's what the book says.
Yeah, but then the books are supposed to be guidelines.
Yeah, guidelines, not actual
Which
rules.
some players, some DMs forget that, and it's like, no. We as a table decide what we're actually playing with here. And yeah, I agree, that diagonal.
Yes, that's a really silly
Yeah.
piece of advice right there.
Like, no, you can move your 30 feet.
Sort of
Go ahead.
like the silliest question I ever got was, how do I keep my party from TPK? Like, get control of your party, man. You're the one who TPKs them. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Bueller? Okay.
What's your favorite entry for the monster manual?
The Tarrasque.
No, but like an actual answer though.
Trust me, and okay. I don't know about the monster manual, but I actually have a fire newt. They're adorable. How could you kill them? You look up a picture of a fire newt next time you get a chance, and tell me how you think you could hurt something that looks that adorable. He looks like this derpy, nerdy little guy, but he's bright red. He's holding a sword, and it's just, I couldn't do it.
My favorite entry in the monster manual is actually the gelatinous cube. I love as a monster, I love the idea of it, that it's basically, it cleans up the dungeon, and if you fight it, you're fighting the janitor, and it's just doing its job, and they're so fun to use because they can go so translucent you don't even see them, which makes them great for traps as well. Like a classic trap I came across that I think I put in a dungeon once was, there was a long hallway with multiple archway or little alcoves, about 5-foot squares. At the end of the hallway is a trap that creates a large boulder coming down it. Well, then some of those are gelatinous cubes. So when you try to duck in to hide, you go right in one as the boulder goes by, and now you're stuck trying to get out. Yeah, the gelatinous cube is one of my favorites to play around with.
And I don't care what anybody here says at all. I'm going to tell you right now, the most overpowered creature I've ever put in a game was the fighter who had 2 attack actions instead of 1.
Oh, in the early levels?
Almost killed the first level party because he had a bow, he had 2 actions, and he had a little distance.
Yeah. Actually, going off of that question, looking between the different editions and seeing how at one point a monster was much more powerful, then they kind of nerfed it a bit, then it kind of go up and down. If you've ever looked at the 4th edition Displacer Beast,
Oh yeah. Only hit him on an odd number.
yeah, on the die roll.
Yeah.
It's not
you
like,
got-
oh no, you rolled this. No. It's like, but I rolled a 19. Or, I'm sorry, was it evens or odds?
I think it was evens, or I think it was odds. You could hit it, so that way
Yeah.
you couldn't even crit it.
Yeah, so if your die roll, even with all your modifiers, wasn't an even or an odd, whichever one it was, unfortunately I forget the moment, your attack still missed completely. As opposed to 5th edition where you roll disadvantage on the first attack unless it gets a turn to kind of re-displace, or some of the earlier versions. And then, speaking of the Tarrasque, if I were to run the Tarrasque, I wouldn't use the 5th edition version. I'd give my players more resources, but I would use something like the 3.5 or Pathfinder where it has regeneration, because to me, the Tarrasque should be less of a bullet sponge and more of a force of nature.
Not to be that guy, but yes, you only hit it on an odd number.
Was it odd? Okay.
I pulled it off.
Yeah, no, I
All right, now, here brings me to a good one. What do you do when your players question you as a DM and you don't have a skull on a stick? Me personally, I don't like to use the character on character or DM on character violence to establish. I like to just make,
Oh, reverse. It actually says it hits on it even, not the odd.
no, sorry, I'm not the 4th edition guy. I just like the game. Where was I? Great, you completely
Not
threw
like,
off. I didn't
DM
interrupt
on
you.
player,
Not
player on
DM.
player.
One player or player on player.
Yeah, no, I just like to make repercussions on their actions. You know, it's like if you want to argue with me on anything, go ahead, do it. Yep, that's how that works. And well, I guess that didn't work out for you, did it? We tried to warn you. Boblin the Goblin said something, and you didn't listen.
I think I know what you're referring to.
No, I'm just covering a random
Just general, I guess.
question that pops into my head. I'm not talking about Jamie. Jesus.
Oh, I thought it was the rogue who was practically killing the janitor who we
No,
thought knew
no,
something but
no.
didn't know something.
No. She got dealt with by fire giants. That had nothing to do with me in the Curse of Strahd, where there's obviously tons of fire giants. There's not. But no, looking for questions. Oh, we got a question.
So you said something earlier about the shy new player versus like the DM, how the DM helps that person. What about the reverse? I just started a campaign with some friends a couple months ago, and I'm brand new to the game, don't know what I'm doing, and picked one of the most emotionally complex backstories for my character possible.
Okay.
So how do I, as the shy, not know what I'm doing player, interact more? Like, how do I like force myself into it?
Well, first I'd get with the DM. I'd ask him or her or they what exactly you would like. Be like, hey, what could I do to make my character more prominent in the story? How can I engage more in the party? The other one being make that realization that like you might be the new guy, but you're still there. You're still there to play, and it's a role-playing game. So feel free to enjoy and embrace that. And I know it can take a little time, and sometimes you just gotta, let yourself ease into it.
I would say one that helps a lot is learn your class abilities, the best of them. So this way you're confident in what choices you make. When it comes to backstory, know that backstory because it's your character. Know that story as much as your character would know the story. If there's any mystery or intrigue behind it, obviously the DM would know more and talk with them. Talk with the players too. Like do a little group, think tank on it, and use that sometimes as like ideas for like a springboard or something. I have a player who he walked into a room, first time player, playing a warlock, launched an Eldritch Blast, and they're like, oh damn, and he's like, okay, well you started this, what do you do now? And he froze up. And I was sitting there next to him helping. I was like, well, here, you can use, because you're high charisma, you can use that skill to kind of de-escalate now and play off that missed shot as a warning shot.
I know
And-
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's, I've seen people make a decision and then go into complete, what we call analysis paralysis. Where it's like, what do I do now? I'm the cleric, who needs healing? Like, one thing he implemented and I started implementing myself is sort of like a little bit of a shot clock on your turn. Not like, you got 3 seconds, go, go, go. But it's like you do not have enough time in the span of your turn to ask every member of your party who needs heals.
Also, I would say to always think of what would this character do in this situation, and just try to lean into that more. And don't be afraid to try stuff. Don't be afraid that, oh, this is wrong. No, nothing's wrong. It just may not go well, or it may not be possible with your current point, or maybe you can't jump the 60-foot chasm. But maybe with the right spells, you could. But communication is the key thing. And then just, work with them, and you can ask them, like, hey, here's what I want to do. How do I kind of get more into that and move forward at that point?
Yeah. What is it? Communication, preparation, and expectation. Manage all three.
Yeah.
I hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
That's a good
hey,
question.
great job speaking up in a large group of people.
Yeah, that's step one right
I mean,
there.
that's the reason why I didn't ask like 4 questions ago.
Hey.
And you know
Like
what?
I
If
said,
it takes a little time, that's fine.
I've been coming to Megacon, 10 years now, and I've never seen anybody stoned for asking a question. But I've seen a couple of stoned people ask questions.
What you just said, communication, expectation, and what?
Communication, preparation, expectation. Manage all three.
Yeah, definitely knowing your background, your race, a little bit of the history.
And I'm not gonna lie, I came up with that 5 seconds ago. That is something I have never said before. It's like literally, it's like, yeah, you need to manage to communicate, you need to manage to be prepared, and you need to make sure that you don't think you're creating Batman. Because it just can't happen.
Yeah,
T-shirt.
Yeah, you can't be Batman. Welcome to D&D.
yeah.
And improvisation.
Oh, yeah.
Improvisation, always appreciated, but never required.
Never required, never rely on. But
Like if you're not good at improvisation, you can still sit at my table and play D&D. I've seen a lot of people pull movie stuff just right. It's like, yeah, dude, I've seen Die Hard. Come on.
Last time I improv something, I got arrested for muffins, so.
And you see, I want to know more about that. That's the kind
Wait,
of adventures you
now,
have.
was this in a D&D game?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, it'd be fine either way.
No, I was trying to sneak out of a college, totally forgot that my rogue had all of his equipment on. And the campus police were like, hey, there's a serial killer on the loose. What are you doing sneaking out of the college? We're putting you in jail. All I wanted was muffins.
Yeah. We,
It's still a breakfast item, so you were an accessory to the crime.
we had a scenario where the party split in town, so should have been okay.
Don't you know you never split the party?
2 of them were at a bar trying to buy a house. 2 of them were infiltrating the city guard. And the rest of us were looking into potential bounties on our heads, and the BBEG's henchmen came and started some trouble, and my alchemist started throwing bombs in the middle of the city, and there was collateral damage that eventually led to a Benny Hill style chase out of town, including racing towards the statue of Dionysus to get to the base of it to get one of the characters' MacGuffins from his past that was hidden in the pedestal of it. It was one of our favorite nights. So yeah, sometimes you just forget, you just roll with it, and you just have things that are like, what?
Yeah, I got two of the 3 of us go arrested for the same thing.
Yeah.
For muffins. Yeah.
You ever been arrested for stabbing some guy to steal his family's sword because you just really wanted a falchion?
Is this D&D or?
I would like to plead the 5th and request the representation of my cobalt attorney. Boy, we screw him in half.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I love to play the melee striker classes, as you could probably tell. And so I always recommend when new players come in, they try to play, barbarian fighter, something to kind of ease into it that doesn't take a lot of thinking. Because if I can do it, anyone can. But, and then generally it's easy. They either want to find out, so, you know what, I want more spell casting, or I want to be more of a face. And then they'll start leaning into a class that they really want to play, and then it'll start getting them more excited too. So that helps out quite a bit.
Yeah, which also helps with helping a shy player get more engaged, give them
Yeah.
something a bit more straightforward that mechanically is just, you're good, you don't have to memorize too many things, and then they can open more into the role-playing part of it.
Because nothing brings the shyness away, takes that shyness away than full rage barbarians.
Yeah. In fact, I usually recommend the new players, Barbarian, Fighter, Rogue, and in 5th edition, if you want to play a spellcaster, play a Warlock. Short rest spell recharge, you only have a handful of spells,
See?
and you just know all your spells.
Hey, that's great, because that's something I actually disagree with you on.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the sorcerer. Even
That's
for a
fair.
first-time player, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good spell access, not a lot of
Spontaneous caster,
Yeah,
always way to go.
spontaneous casters are always fun. But I mean, hey, that's just the thing. You know.
Yep. Each our own bread and butter.
We'll fight about it later, I promise.
Sorcery.
Sorcerers.
Managing sorcery points, though.
If you implement the sorcery points, especially with new players, sometimes it's good to take some of the more difficult things like sorcery points, grit points for your gunslingers, stuff like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely try to get them to avoid the prepared casters as. But I know the spell. You didn't prepare it though. Or druids, unless they really want to try playing a druid for the first time in their first game.
Wild shape.
Yeah, wild shape and spell casting. But then usually I provide them like pre-printed out sheets of the different beasts they can turn into, at what levels, what they do, and just say, just fill these numbers in at those levels so you have there's your stats. Don't worry about too many of the extra spells, just pick your normal and we can re-prepare as needed. And like real cool, like just maybe changing the rules a little bit for them until they get more of a grasp on it. Like, you know all your spells, you just have spell slots like a sorcerer. That's one way I could have done it before.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do
there-
you prefer using like online kind of things to do like D&D Beyond or like paper kind of sheets?
I have a preference. Normally we play in person, and I'm usually the bookkeeper, and I usually have a 3-ring binder that gets about this thick with my character's backstory, my class features, my racial features, my background, my all the items I have, all the items the party has, and so on, and all my spells. But that's me personally. I played around D&D Beyond, and it's a great character creation tool, and honestly, it's fun. I don't personally like paying both for paper and then a digital version of the book, so normally that's all I would use it for. And for new players, I'd say, yeah, if you want to use that and help build your character, absolutely. If you want to do it in person, I can print some stuff out, we can go over it, whatever works. If you're going to use the D&D Beyond, though, let me at least get a base account so I can get a copy of your stuff so I can help you out more for bookkeeping. But yeah, I prefer that kind of stuff.
I personally have I have many issues with certain players. One of my players, I want him to do everything digitally because he has handwriting that I'm pretty sure is Sanskrit mixed with ADD. It is just chicken scratch. Like he has 3 blah 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 blahs. Okay, I'm gonna assume that's my spells, and I got 3 spells because I've had to fill in for his character a number of times. I'm just like, I don't even know my own name.
4 of us passed the sheet around going,
Like, I think that's a
I
hieroglyph.
think there's rope in there.
Yeah.
And he was playing a wizard.
Yeah, a learned scholar. So yeah, sometimes it can be just in order to aid traceability on information. You know, it's like if I type it out, there's no way I'm going to misread that. No way I'm going to lose that sheet of paper. But also there'll be times where you're like, you have like a speed item going in your head, you're just like, crap, where is it? Where is it? No, not that, not this. What? Pop up. Yeah. So I recommend both. You can have digital, you can have paper, you can actually have your character sheet digital and your books in paper, and vice versa.
I will say the digital ones do have the benefit of like any expendable resources like sorcery points, script points, or key points in the case of the monk. And you can just keep tapping as you use it and it automatically keeps track. It is great.
Mention Control F.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any classes or subclasses that you would kind of coax new players into avoiding?
Yes, for Rogue Assassin, it looks great on paper, it sounds great, but you get to use your one feature once per combat. And there it goes. By the way, we still have a few more rounds of combat, and that's only if you got the surprise.
Any gunslinger. I try to keep new players away from the gunslingers because they keep thinking, oh, it's a gun, it's one shot. It's like, no. These are hardier creatures than normal humans on our Earth.
Yeah,
You really want to mess with them, say, it's not Earth-like gravity. The rounds drop earlier.
also with 5th edition, I explain the different ones, and I'll explain why ones I would steer them away from, like I mentioned Drew before, because of the amount of complexity that comes from it. But I would never say, no, you shouldn't, but it's like, there's a lot of bookkeeping. Same thing with Wizard, at least in earlier editions, especially with all the meta magic rods and wands and staffs.
Not to mention bloodline spell editions, and it's like, oh well, I took this feat, this background. And it's like, hey, yeah, okay, you got to keep track of all that because if you lose something like that,
But yeah, any of the known problem class, like subclasses, like the Beastmaster Ranger, has always been on 5th edition as being one of the weakest versions of Ranger because of the action economy. I usually will explain the issue, and I normally also homebrew it a little bit so I can kind of bring it back in line with everything else. But for brand new players, I try to avoid as much of the tweak to the rules and homebrewing, just so they get a real grasp of how the game was designed to be played.
which can usually be achieved via flavor text.
Yeah.
I love to just be like, oh well, if I want to play somebody who shoots something, I'll take somebody who's got the spell Fireball and just say, I pull out a shotgun and I start casting Fireball. But then again, I play my Barbarian, so I just cast Sword at a 2nd level.
Yeah, thankfully, 5th edition's balanced enough that really there's no bad choice. I will, if there's something they're going for, I will advise them on other options that might fit it better. Like if I want to play a guy who swings a sword and casts magic, and like, okay, well, here are your options. You have a Blade Singer Wizard. You have the Warlock, Hack of the Blade or Hexblade. You have, of course, you have your fighter with its magic subclasses. Normally, I wouldn't recommend Eldritch Knight because it takes so long to get all those cool features. It's like, unless you're playing at that, you're starting there, you're not going to get to use your fun toys until later. So.
And it never hurts to ask the new player, well, what is your overall goal with playing that character? Because they might be thinking they're playing something they're not.
Yeah. Although, one last bit, I'll get to your question.
But I think this gentleman also had a question.
Okay, actually, yeah, we'll go to that, and then.
Did you not raise your hand a little bit ago?
I did, but I can wait.
Okay. Just keeping the pecking order.
Go ahead.
So the next campaign that I do, I want to make my character basically Doomslayer. What do you recommend doing for that, like class and feat and background?
Well,
There is a big shotgun artificer in 5th edition.
when it comes to any comic, video game, anime, movie, any of those characters, you have to accept that for the most part, you're not going to be playing it a direct clone. Like he said before, you can't be Batman.
Yes.
You can be elements of that character, certain parts. With Doomslayer, obviously, a Barbarian is your first go-to option because of the rage mechanic, the resistance to damage. I could also say you could try to steer maybe looking at a higher defense so that you can flavor it as you've taken the hits, but it didn't affect you, even though they just missed you mechanically. But I would also lean towards Fighter just for the amount of damage the Doomslayer does. Because Fighter gets many more feats, so you can pick up a few more options that could then build into the arsenal the Doomslayer normally has. So I would look at Fighter or Barbarian first and foremost. And then if you want to look at the other ones, you might find something that could also work.
Don't attack me. I have no idea what Doomslayer is.
Oh, from the game Doom?
The guy who gets into the giant gun gets fired through a planet?
Yes.
No, never heard of it.
Okay. You have a question?
I would love to hear your opinion of the latest D&D movie, like your favorite elements and how they handle the classes.
nobody was prepared, everything went to chaos, and 0 plans actually got achieved. That's a D&D game if I've ever been in one.
Not to mention the boss battle actually showed how the combat really does play out, except for that we see it piece by piece on the table. The movie I thought was done excellent. Now, I mean, I still enjoyed the older one too for its elements, but I think that one did a great job of showing what D&D and other tabletops are like, and the fun that you can have, and the sheer variety the worlds bring. I mean, there's so much in that movie. I could do probably a whole panel on just what we loved about it.
They had your cube in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did have the cube in there.
Yeah, I was excited when I saw it in the preview. Actually, I will say there was one part that when I saw in the trailer, I was like, I got to see it now. When they showed the
But spoiler alert, has anybody here not seen the movie? Is anybody here going to see the movie? Spoiler
well,
alert.
it's in the trailer.
I don't really care that much.
I'm just alerting you that there could be a spoiler up ahead.
The '80s cartoon D&D team, they're in the movie,
Yeah.
and it's almost as if their adventures have still been going on when the show ended. And I was like, okay, I got to go see that. Because I remember when people were like, wait, is that them? And they were bringing down the trailer. I was like, that's them. So that to me was a nice little Easter egg they put in.
But what's, were they in? I didn't see that.
In the Coliseum.
In the maze scene,
Yeah.
they are one of the
Early
teams.
age.
They're in the other team that's, one of the other teams that's.
That beat them to one of the chests with the items. The barbarian looking guy.
And the
That's
guy
them.
with the green cloak.
That's Bobby.
Bobby, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, seeing that was like, okay, the directors and the writers, they did their homework. So, yeah, that was a fun movie. I really
Not to
enjoyed it.
mention, that there's a very awesome looking Eric Coker in that one that I'm like, that's how I imagine him.
That's right. That was good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's definitely about it. Any other questions?
All right, in the movie Highlander. No.
How do I beat the Highlander?
Yeah. Actually, no, I gotta say, the beginning of that movie with the long drawn out background, and then some of the characters are like, okay, and I don't care, what are you doing? Which also happens at tables sometimes.
Actually, one of my all-time favorite scenes in that movie as a DM is the graveyard scene. Because that is a group of people trying to investigate without the real ability to investigate, which has been every D&D game I can
Yeah.
remember. It's like, like they'll walk away going, dude, it was supposed to be 5 questions. Come back.
Yeah. I can't rest until you ask the last question.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, they did a good job of just, and I think the movie also helped get a lot of new players in a good way.
Owlbear druids.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Every.
Owl bear, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
the 8 little.
a wild shaping druid is a powerful, powerful
Now,
class,
granted, I had to-
but a lot of bookkeeping.
I had to remind somebody, I was like, well, the prior edition druids could actually do that. She's a legacy character, that's why she gets that special ability. But then again, in Baldur's Gate 3, we got to play around with that feature, so that was fun.
Again,
Sometimes
spoiler
you
alerts,
call-
I haven't beaten the game yet. When do I turn into the Mind Flayer?
That was a good comment that you made too, and I want to maybe circle back around to
Sure.
it about the, like the gunslinger and using, it reminded me of Knights of the Dinner Table, where sometimes they'd go and do the space adventures and,
Oh, yeah.
shoot.
We have done space adventures ourselves.
Remember the power gamer guy, the one with the heavy eyebrow? He'd always go bringing, prepping fireballs. When they go to the space adventure, he'd be bringing missiles online.
Yeah.
So same 6-1, and I think that's a great technique to incorporate things that characters want to have, but put it into the setting that they are. And,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
that's
I-
that right there. I believe we call
I
that
think
flavor
that's a
text.
great idea.
Yeah, and you can do a whole campaign based off of that. We have one of those called One-Way Ticket to Midnight, which is just D&D, but in space, and everything goes wrong. Only because of me. I admit it, I screwed up. Our DM was basically, he did not understand illusion of choice at the time. So he's like, so you're flying through space after you've completed the great mission, and you see an emergency homing beacon coming in over there. It's like, well, it's not going anywhere. let's go get rid of this gold and come back. And he had nothing else planned but that encounter on that one little thing. But we told him no,
Oh, yeah.
we ain't stopping.
You described it as
Adios.
massive fleet of ships just floating in debris. This one ship still on. Some were crystalline, some were organic. And we're like, wow, that's cool. But we just got paid. I was playing a rogue, didn't help. And I was flying the ship, like, cool, marking coordinates, and we're out. I would have went back. I just wanted to get some new equipment. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, no. One day we're just going to have a panel where we tell the silliest stories we've ever seen in D&D. Oh, hey, we're here.
Yeah, but it does go back to leaning into players, what they want
Yeah.
and bringing that to life. That really helps ignite and get everyone more into it because it's like, wait, I can do that? Well, yeah, you can. To some extent in some cases, but you can still, like, I love reflavoring spells or class features in a way that was more organic for my character. Like, I had made a warlock, genie warlock, and I made him like Twisted Fate / Gambit. So his Eldritch Blast were just magic cards he summoned and threw. And I would translate certain deals like Agonizing Blast where it hit more like a mule instead, or if it, because of the genie, the Ifriti, fire went around on the first card that went out. When he would summon his Bottled Respite where he can hide inside his ring, he would just throw a card and it created a door and it would just go in there even though I'm just into the ring, technically. So I love doing that with features, and because to me it brings the game, it makes it more personal and it brings it more to life. And then everyone starts having more fun because it's like, wait, I can, oh, okay, yeah. I remember I had a player who wanted to play basically Ichigo from from Bleach, because he wanted to do his Bankai where he gets really fast and it's a lot of attacks. And I was like, okay, well, we don't have that class in the game, but we could do Fighter with Action Surge, which could fill that niche completely, or we could even do a little bit of Barbarian as you're transforming, like he pulls the mask down and now you're hitting harder. The game never got going on that one, but it was ways that we were trying to brainstorm his idea into that game so he could play it and enjoy it. Which, to me, that's always more important than the DM is, I want my players to have fun. I want them to, within the setting and the limitations, the rules to whatever extent that's balanced. But I'm more than willing to say we're gonna ignore that one rule. We're gonna make this happen.
As I always tell first-time DMs, it's you are not a character. You are telling the story. The players are experiencing the story, and you need to make it fun for them. That is the best way to describe what you're doing. High five, yeah. Oh.
So
What's
how
up?
would you go about making homebrewed characters like monsters? I've been playing around with the idea of making a campaign based off of an already existing universe to kind of make world building easy for me, so it's like a first time DMing type thing.
That's an excellent way to do it too.
How would you go about making a homebrew monster that will fit the role of the monster in like the video game or the movie or whatever?
Wherever it's from,
perfectly?
yeah.
Like what are your steps to going through that?
I can't go through all the steps I go through because it's a lot of them and it's a lot of just, quick thinking. The first thing though I will tell you to make sure of is don't be afraid to pull him back a little or push him forward a little. Like, hey, yeah, you know what? I'm not hitting them at all, and they need to, feel a little bit of pushback. Otherwise, it's not going to feel like a fun encounter with that monster. So, feel free to escalate. Be like, oh yeah, no, that 7 would totally hit because I rolled it behind the DM screen, and you can't see there.
So how about for like stats? Like, would you kind of like?
So I get what you're asking. And
Oh, so generating the actual stats.
yeah.
I never really found those as important because the player characters are never going to see those stats.
Or they
Just
should.
like make it up.
They should, yeah. Like legitimately, it's like if the one thing that would annoy me as a DM, I'd let it go, but it would annoy me is when they go, oh, that creature can't do that. It's like, then the best thing you can say is, yeah, normally.
Yeah. One thing I would approach by, which is, and this is kind of based off of the guide in 3.5 and Pathfinder when you're making custom magic items, look for something that's already in the books that's close to what you want it to do, and then adjust it as needed. So in the case of 5th edition, and let's say you're building your world, and you're like, okay, I want this guy to have this oppressive aura. 5 minutes, cool. There's troglodytes, I think, have the stench breath that if you're near them, you start getting noxious and disadvantage on your attacks. And you could reflare that as that it's just their menacing aura instead of the breath. Taking monster abilities and features from other creatures can also help. Looking in prior editions, or different systems might actually have exactly what you're looking for with a little bit of rebalancing for what you're playing in.
Yeah, one of my in the vein of what he's talking about there, I still have a copy of the 2nd edition's Tomb of Horrors, I believe, and I still love running that with any 4E, 5E, because most of those modules transfer over pretty easily. But nothing is scarier than a stone gargoyle that's grappling you.